just love it. I really do think this is a really unique and special team.
It is.
In the locker room, we really do love each other. Like, we love spending.
Welcome to Ballgoritham USA, your home for everything WNBA. It's from film room breakdowns to fast-paced highlights. And today we're bringing you the complete story of how the Indiana Fever powered past the Chicago Sky with a final score of 93-78. But this wasn't just any win. It was a showcase of chemistry, poise, and most of all, a full-on masterclass from Kelsey Mitchell. From the moment the ball was tipped at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, there was a different energy about the Indiana Fever. The bounce in their step, the fluidity in their warm-ups. And when the action began, it didn't take long to figure out who was. Going to take the lead, Kelsey Mitchell. She set the tone early, dribbling with purpose, pulling up in rhythm, and draining the first of many threes. The form was clean, the confidence undeniable. That made it 10 straight games with at least 2 made three-pointers, and we were just getting started. Chicago tried to push the pace in return, looking to attack in transition with Cardoso running the floor. She got a good look, but Aliyah Boston wasn't having it. With perfect timing and positioning, she sprinted back and rejected Cardoso's layup attempt in emphatic fashion. That was more than just a defensive play, it was a message. Indiana wasn't backing down tonight, and from there, it became a clinic. Dina Fever's next possession was a display of movement. Around the perimeter, cutting through Chicago's defense like a hot knife through butter. Every touch had intent. No wasted motion. And it ended with Mitchell jittering into the paint, drawing 2 defenders, dropping it off to McDonald, who scooped in the layup with grace and precision. That was how Indiana planned to play fast, selfless, connected. Then came another. 3. Mitchell again, this time off a swing pass from Howard. Her defender went under the screen. Big mistake. Mitchell let it fly, nothing but net. That one came despite some on-court confusion, maybe even a little smoke in the air. From the energy inside, but it didn't matter. Mitchell was locked in. The chemistry was flowing. On the next set, Boston picked up the ball at the high post, patiently waited, and spotted Timpson slicing through the lane. A perfect bounce pass hit the rookie in stride, and Timpson finished. Beautifully at the rim, that's the Boston effect, not just dominating with scoring, but making her teammates better with every possession. Still in the first quarter, Mitchell, again, Kachanchud. Money that made it 3 threes in the opening frame. And the Fever were pulling away. The scoreboard read 26-13 after 1, but it felt like more. Mitchell had caught fire, and Chicago had no water to put it out. As the camera faded to break and the WNBA on ABC graphic rolled, fans and viewers were buzzing. Could already feel the momentum shifting toward Indiana in a big way. Coming out of the quarter break, the Fever didn't let up. Kayla Timpson, the rookie, got the ball on the low block, took her time, squared up against Maddie West, and backed her down with a calm, controlled move. She turned and banked it in softly, showing maturity beyond her years. That bucket was personal. Rookie versus rookie, strength versus footwork. Timpson won the battle. Chicago responded with a lineup change, bringing in Westbell Davis, Banham, Williams, and Nurse to shake things up. But Indiana matched with Lexi Hull, who immediately made her presence felt, nailing an elbow jumper that halted an 11-0 Chicago run and recentered Indiana's offense. Moments later, Kelsey Mitchell got loose again, used a little hesitation dribble, a quick retreat, crossover through the legs, and flipped it up to an unguarded Aliyah Boston, who calmly finished under the rim. That was the kind of action that doesn't show up in simple stats. It was years of chemistry, hundreds of reps, and trust, all in one fluid movement. Chicago tightened defensively on the next possession, and Timpson's drive was swatted away by Williams. But Indiana didn't panic. They recovered, moved the ball again, and this time Chloe Bai knocked down a big 3 from the corner. Shot had weight. Not just on the scoreboard, but in energy. The kind of bucket that silences a run and sends a ripple through the defense. Let's pause and give credit where it's due. Chloe Bai. He spent a few games with the Golden State Valkyries earlier this season, including a highly productive one against this same Indiana squad, came in and gave Indiana quality minutes. Her readiness, her shooting form, her quick release, everything screamed veteran awareness. And her three-pointer here gave Indiana the breathing room they needed. Now let's talk transition, because Indiana was thriving there. Another Sky turnover, their ninth, and Mitchell went full speed downhill, scooping it in on the break, the Fever now on an 18-2 run. The Sky were stuck, and Indiana was just flying. It was at this point that even broadcasters took a moment to recognize Mitchell's performance. One sideline reporter joked, "I'm scared to stand this close to you, you might be scorching hot," and she wasn't wrong. Mitchell had been dominating on the road recently, averaging 24 points across 6 games, and here she was, lighting it up again in hostile territory. Her explanation? Calm, composed, authentic. "I just try to stay in rhythm by being aggressive. If I'm being myself, things fall into place. My teammates make it easier for me." That quote, dat, wasn't just soundbite material, it was philosophy, and it showed with every possession. Let's break down one of the prettiest first quarter stat lines of the season. Kelsey Mitchell. Double-digit points already, Aaliyah Boston. Near-perfect floor game with scoring. Rebounding and facilitation, McDonald and Hull. Both effective in the Lane's Fever defense, holding the Sky to 13 points in the opening. 10 minutes and we weren't even close to halftime. As the second quarter wore on, Indiana kept pressing. Timpson continued to assert herself. She worked the glass, got physical with Cardoso, and made the kind of gritty hustle plays that coaches love, but box scores don't always reward. Then Hull, again spinning into the paint, dishing to Timpson, who finished with contact. That's not rookie energy, that's seasoned confidence. Defensively, Indiana held Chicago to perimeter shots that weren't falling. They cut off backdoor lanes, they rotated with precision. Every time the Sky tried to claw back, Indiana made them reset. In one sequence, Timpson poked the ball loose and chased it down. Fast break, 2 steps, left-handed finish, smooth, composed. That sequence alone was a highlight reel. Chicago's bench looked frustrated, their coaches animated. But Indiana wasn't done. Hull from the corner, bang. Off a deflected pass, bang. Back-to-back-to-back haymakers. And then came the big moment. Mitchell again. 28 points and counting. 6 made threes. 15 points in the quarter alone, and she was smiling, relaxed, in rhythm. This wasn't just a hot hand. This was ownership of the game. The final moments of the half brought even more fireworks. Pulled up from the corner with onion leaf flying at her, shot up, splash at the buzzer. Clean, timed perfectly. Indiana headed to the locker room with energy, momentum, and a commanding lead. The Sky had cut the lead to 2 at one point, but Indiana closed the half on a 17-0 run. The shift wasn't just on the scoreboard, it was psychological. And as both teams walked to the tunnel, it was clear Indiana wanted this more, this more. The second half opened with something subtle but critical: patience. Indiana didn't rush. They didn't gamble. They knew they had the lead, but they also knew momentum in the WNBA is fragile, and teams like the Sky can erase deficits in a heartbeat, and the Fever's approach. Surgical. They went right back to what had worked in the first: movement, angles, and execution. Timpson opened things up again. She took a hard screen from Hull, posted up just off the low block, and received. A well-timed bounce pass from Mitchell. She didn't hesitate, drop step, finish off glass, and drew contact. Arokian rookie violence and Timpson made it look effortless. Chicago came back down and tried to isolate Cardoso, who had started putting together an efficient night of her own. Her post hook dropped, giving her 14 points and 8 rebounds, but even that was hard-earned. Indiana was bodying her, switching wisely and crowding the paint. And that's when McDonald struck again. On a misread pass from Chicago's backcourt, McDonald jumped the lane, exploded in transition, and laid it in on the break. Another moment that didn't just produce 2 points, it broke rhythm. Indiana had now forced their 11th turnover, and they were turning defense into offense at an elite clip. Then came Chloe by, once again proving her worth. With Chicago trying a 2-3 zone to slow Mitchell, Indiana adapted immediately. By floated behind the zone to the wing, caught a pass from Boston, and in one smooth motion, let it fly, 3 points. The mechanics on her shot were like poetry. The form, the lift, the quick release. She was making herself indispensable. The sky tried to collapse harder on her the next possession. And that's when Mitchell reminded everyone why the defense can't shift too far. She cut backdoor off a dribble handoff, caught Boston's bounce pass, and finished through a hard foul. It was a tough bucket, a fearless cut, and pure instinct. And then it was Boston's turn. She received the ball just beyond the elbow, jabbed once, then hit a face-up jumper that looked straight out of a Big's dream reel. The footwork, balanced, the release, smooth. It was her 6th point, and she'd already added 6 rebounds and 6 assists. A stat line that screamed all-around impact. McDonald kept pushing the pace. After a quick Boston outlet pass, she drove hard down the right lane, absorbed contact, and flipped it in with her left. This team wasn't just executing, they were communicating, running lanes, and trusting each other. Out of a timeout, Indiana ran a simple but deadly play. A double screen at the top for Mitchell to flare into the corner. She caught it, squared, fired, and hit her 4th 3 of the night. She was now 6 of 10 from the field, and still humming. A scoring rhythm that looked automatic, unshakable. Chicago tried to retaliate. He got a good look for Banham, who drilled a mid-range jumper. Then they fed Nurse on a backdoor cut. She hesitated, missed the layup, and things began slipping again. That hesitation was everything. Sky were second-guessing. In Indiana, they were locked in. On the very next possession, Mitchell came off a high ball screen set by Boston, took a small hop, and drained a deep 3. No hesitation. That small hop, just a subtle elevation, was the difference between contested and clean. Mitchell. She knew it. She wasn't done. Moments later, she snaked around another Boston screen, drove hard, froze the weak side help, and laid it in with her offhand. That made it Kelsey Mitchell's game. Chicago was just living in it. But it wasn't just defense. Indiana's rotation on defense stayed crisp. Their closeouts were on time. Their switches were tight. Chicago began settling for outside shots and quick floaters, and Indiana made them pay for every poor decision. The sequence that summed it all up came with 4 minutes left in the 3rd. Hull attacked baseline, drew a double, spun, and dropped a perfect assist to Timpson, who powered it up through contact. Indiana had once again created something beautiful out of spacing, awareness, and unselfish basketball. Timpson wasn't just contributing, she was thriving. Then she made another defensive play, poking away a lazy dribble, sprinting ahead and finishing a fast break all by herself. Energy was infectious. Then Hull again, catching the ball in the corner, setting her feet and splashing a 3 over a late contest. That made it a 17-0 run to end the 3rd quarter. Chicago had trimmed a 16-point deficit down to 2 with just over 5 minutes left in the quarter. But Indiana's response was immediate, complete, and destructive. They ended the quarter with back-to-back-to-back daggers, a massive swing that put the game out of reach. Mitchell was up to 28 points now, minus 15 in the quarter alone. She'd hit a season-high 6 threes, and she was still smiling. The bench was alive. The team was hyped. The Fever were closing in on one of their best all-around wins of the year. 4th quarter, closing time with the 4th quarter underway. Indiana's message was clear. Finish strong. Chicago opened with a decent set, Colson driving and dropping off to Timpson, who hit a soft layup under pressure. But even then, the energy belonged to Indiana. They were 2 steps faster on every loose ball. Their eyes were up in transition. Their spacing was textbook. Hull dished to Boston in the post. Chicago packed the paint, but it didn't matter. Boston turned baseline, absorbed the bump, banked it in anyway. Calm, cold, clutch. Then came a beautiful read. Hull curled around. Boston drew 2 defenders, flipped it out to Sophie Cunningham, who was wide open and waiting. She drained her first 3 of the night, extending Indiana's lead and erasing any hopes of a sky rally. Chicago, desperate, tried again with Cardoso, who had a solid game, finishing with 18 points and 9 rebounds, but she couldn't anchor. A comeback alone. Meanwhile, Indiana continued to share the ball, trust the system, and execute. Late in the 4th, Mitchell got the ball deflected. It bounced wild. She chased it down, recovered, rose up, and hit another three. That made